came today because why not? You know, I am also an educator and curator, but I work at the intersection of art and technology, and it's important that people who look like the people in this room have these conversations and are included in the conversation and has the knowledge base to work from those conversations and to produce our creativity in this space. Like, why not be here?
Hello, everyone. I wanted to just add a couple things to my bio. I'm also a Morehouse alum. And I'm also a member of Alpha Phi fraternity program. Well represented here. But I came out, you know, I was invited by Robert, and I really appreciated the invitation. And I accepted because I think this is a really important topic. It's very timely. You know, I speak from the perspective of collectors because that's who my clients are. And, you know, get questions about NFTs, get questions about AI-generated art, you know, changes in the way that art is purchased. You know, they've been happening for some time now. So I think technology is definitely making waves. So it's an important topic to discuss, and this is a great forum to do that.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. So what we'll do is I'll jump into a few questions. One thing that I do just want the teacher in me has to always draw the map. So we have the artist, we have the curator, we have the person that deals with collections. I think it's interesting seeing this pipeline of connection. So I might shift some of the questions just to kind of help the people see the connection. But the first question, I'm gonna start down with Shanti. So how does technology change the way that artists create and present their work? And what opportunities and challenges does this present?
All right, so one of the things that I started recently doing has been using ChatGPT for my artist statements to help me with grants for writings. The paperwork is not my fun part. I want to create, so being able to delegate and give the necessary information presented in a neater package has definitely created less stress for me and allowed me to flourish in other areas. Answer that question. But also, I recently started working on a children's book, and the concept has been, I want to say, my style mixed with Dr. Seuss, and I haven't fully conceptualized that. And then there's a program called Valley 2, which helps you with illustrations. So being able to input exactly what I want it to look like and have variations of that, I get to choose all the different styles within that to make it easier for me to just say, okay, this is how I want it to look like. And then it can give me a whole package, and since I've already written the book, it can illustrate the book for me without me having to do any necessary paperwork after that.
As a quick follow-up, like, so you mentioned using some AI tools to kind of like streamline your process, right? So I'm curious, outside of that, do you have any concerns when you like use these tools to streamline the process? Like, what was it like saying, I'm gonna use ChatGPT and just get this stuff done for the sake of time?
It was more like curiosity. I went into it knowing it was an exploration. ChatGPT is a tool. I do not believe it steals information. Whatever you decide to give it, it's gonna create based on that. So it's a tool like any other device. Be it like money or art supplies, however you decide to put into it, it's what's going to give you back. So I don't really see much of a danger with ChatGPT. I understand that now it's like predicting the stock market. So, but that's really not my forte. So I figured I'm okay with it.
That's fair enough. Just as a quick pulse check, do folks in the audience know what ChatGPT is?
That's my friend.
Just trying to make sure. You never know here. So, quick teacher moment. ChatGPT is essentially, I think of it as like the new Google, where essentially you can give a application on your phone a question, and it uses artificial intelligence to source the answer. So I could say, what were the causes of World War I, and it can produce an essay for me from pulling from other sources. The validity of those sources, like shit. But just wanted to do a quick pulse check there. But thank you all for entertaining that. My next question is for Braylon. How has the rise of digital art and social media impacted the art world, and what are the implications for traditional forms of fine art?
Rob and I had a conversation conversation around this question already, and I had mixed feelings about it, so I'm gonna just put that there first. To your point of using Dolly too, right? There was an article that came out this week about a man in Germany, and his name is Boris Eltgen. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, so forgive me. But what he did was use Dolly to create a photograph, and he submitted it to like Sony's big, what is it called? It's called the Sony World Photography Awards, right? And so it really is where artists are submitting photographs and are trying to win money and validation and validity for their work. And he used this AI system to develop this photograph. And the photograph won, right? And so it became a conversation about, is this valid? Is it his work? Like, how do we differ, right? Whether it's a person's work or is this AI work? I think that brings us to like copyright laws, all of that stuff that we probably gonna talk about soon. But for me as a curator in an art world, it does bring up some concern. Because when you think about curating, you're thinking about a narrative that you're trying to tell. You're thinking about a story and experiences that you want to bring to the forefront. And you're thinking about the authenticity of those experiences. And because AI does pull from a larger pool of like knowledge and resources and database, you do wonder, are those experiences authentic? Can I really be able to tell a story with AI generated art, or can I tell that story and then, at least that I'm jaded, ask questions that would get us to be in conversation with that story, or maybe to plug holes in that story, right? For example, Rob used AI to draft my bio. It said I went to UNLV. I didn't go to UNLV. I am from Las Vegas, Nevada though, right? How does that scare me to attention? You know that, but you know, it's okay, my identity is out there in the world. I have a digital footprint. But it also is like, okay, how much of my human experience is going to be left out because of AI's general, right? And the generalization. And I think for a curator, that is what gets me. And that's what scares me, is that art as a curator who curates. Now we can talk about the formality of some curators these days, but who curates in a more traditional sense, with a more art history lens and background, I wonder how much of that human experience is at risk or at stake when we decide to use AI. But also understanding that we control how we use the tool. So we have the power to be able to use it for good. Just what does that look like? Sorry, did that answer the question?
Did I answer the question?
Yeah.
Okay. Just making sure you call and response educator. Sorry. I hate to do follow-up questions, but y'all have my wheels turning. So you mentioned this idea of stories, right, and what's being created. So at the conference that I mentioned earlier, the founder of a program called Surge, which is a Black educators collective. If you go through ChatGPT, it says that Surge, that institution, was founded by a white woman based in Boston, although it was founded by a Black woman based in Baltimore. And so it was interesting because this question of like story creation, when you pair that with what we're seeing around the country, such as in Florida, right, where we're sanitizing curriculum. So as the curator here, Braylon, not to put you on the spot, when you're thinking about crafting these stories, when you're thinking about making sure the stories are told holistically, do you feel as though AI actually is creating some hurdles and barriers to doing that, that might be difficult for our communities to work around?
Yes, absolutely. It's funny to me that you said that the AI thought it was created by a white woman, because this book, I'm gonna give y'all some text to read. This is called Race After Technology by Ruha Benjamin, who leads the Ida B. Wells Innovation Lab at Princeton. And it's amazing, get it, right? But there is a space in this text where she talks about the history of technology and how it is rooted in whiteness, right? Because you have to think about these technologies are being programmed by people who are in the field, right? Who has access to develop these technologies? Who has access to develop these technologies? Who is at the forefront of these creations, right? That is now used by all of us. Their human experiences, their identities is what's going to determine the way that that program, that AI system is thinking. I'm sure that a white man probably created that, right? Or now right? And so it's like, okay, this white man probably doesn't believe that a black woman out of Baltimore is doing this work. So AI now has this limited scope of human experience and identity. When creating as a curator, I have to be aware of that, right? And I always say curators are like researchers. We create essays just through art, through visual. We create visual essays, visual thesis. I have to be able to source that. And as a researcher, be able to say this is a valid source, this is a scholarly source, as I would say, or not, right? And for me, is this humane? I think that's the question, that the hurdle that may come, but that's how I go about thinking about getting over that hurdle.
Appreciate it. Y'all feeling good?
Yeah.
I'm always going to do a pulse check, sorry. So I'm going to bring it over to Anthony. What role can technology play in making art more accessible and inclusive, to kind of go from the last point we just had? And how can we ensure that all artists have access to the tools and resources that they need?
So I think that technology has already made art more accessible. If you think about Instagram, a lot of people source artists that they like through Instagram. Artists have a chance to put their work out there directly to their audiences through Instagram. I mean, that's a relatively new phenomenon. And then you have platforms like Artsy, which basically brought the inventory from galleries online, where you can see the works that are available in galleries online. So for collectors, that's a really valuable resource to have. So I think in general there has been a lot of good positive momentum in terms of making art more accessible. I think there's definitely more room, but I think there's definitely been a lot of great progress. And in terms of the tools and resources for artists, I don't know if I'm the best person to speak on this because I work more on the collector side, but I do think that one of the challenges that artists have is with pricing their work, and I think it's hard as an independent artist to put a price tag on the value of your work and to sell that to someone, which is why in most cases artists as their career develops, they end up working with galleries, because galleries take on this business function of their practice and they help them with pricing, with marketing. But some artists do that, and so I think that technology could potentially help in terms of pricing and kind of doing some of that benchmarking. The other resources that I thought about is things like resale contracts for artwork. So I'm speaking a little bit to the kind of the business and the value side of art, because that's kind of where my focus is. But something that artists are concerned about, especially as their career is progressing, is that people will flip their work. They'll buy it, at a low price, hold it until that artist market spikes, and then they'll sell their work. And that's not a really good thing for the artist market to have works flood when it goes up, and then it just creates a lot of volatility. So one of the tools I think that artists have been using to prevent that is these contracts that say that you will not sell the work within a certain period of time. And in those contracts, I mean, they're not necessarily enforceable in the court of law, but I think generally like having some standards around, the buying and selling of artwork can help, especially these emerging artists, shore up their markets a bit firmer, so there's not this speculation, which happens with more exposure, more people entering the market. So yeah, I hope that answered the question. I do have thoughts on the AI point that we were talking about earlier. I don't know if now's the time to debate on that. But yeah, I think it definitely. So my opinion on that is